The world of silos is gone. When you think about experiences, it's always customer first. It's not like AI just sprung up in the last 2 years. It's always been there for many years in different forms and fashions. But the generative AI side of the world, which obviously started off with OpenAI, I think that is what is picked up.
AI is out there to actually suck out your jobs. AI is going to take away the jobs.
I don't think people should be worried that AI is going to take your job. AI should be considered as essentially your pair programmer. AI will coexist with humans, but the thing is, it's going to take the grind out of the job that you would have done otherwise and kind of elevate your position to say, let's do better things. You have to be a learner all your life. So you have to spend hours to actually understand what's happening, assimilate that, and then make it real.
The pace of technological innovation continues to accelerate, reshaping industries and redefining possibilities. From artificial intelligence and advanced computing to sustainable tech solutions, businesses are navigating a rapidly evolving landscape to unlock growth and resilience. Hello and welcome to Mint Techcetra, your go-to podcast for everything tech and business. I'm your host Karthik Chawla, and today on this podcast, we will explore emerging technology trends and their transformative potential, focusing on how enterprises can embrace disruption to drive innovation at scale. And today, we are joined by a leader in digital transformation and information, Mr. Chander Damodaran, the MD and Global CTO at Brillio, one of the fastest growing digital transformation services and solution providers. In this role, he leads the company Innovations Charter, advising his customers on digital and AI initiatives. He is also responsible for establishing the engineering mindset within Brillio. With nearly 25 years of industry experience, Mr. Chander drives innovative, outcome-focused digital transformation strategies, inspiring his teams to achieve shared goals with clarity and innovation. Welcome to Mint Techcetra, Mr. Chander Damodaran, and we are honored to have you on the podium.
Well, thank you so much, Karthik, for this warm welcome. 25 years is just a number. I always look at the experiences that you gain through the years. How do you bring that and make it pragmatic, in the work that we do? And thank you. And this is a great opportunity for us to talk about some of these experiences through the day.
I mean, sir, we talked about 25 years of experience that you have in the industry. I mean, off camera, we were having this chit chat, like a bit notorious one, where we're saying that, I come out from an era where I was 5 years old when you started off your career. So congratulations for being in the industry for 25 years and, giving people those ideas of living their dreams. And let's just dive into the conversation and let's see where this conversation actually takes us.
Look forward to that.
So first of all, we talk about AI avatars and spatial computing. These are enhancing personalized customer experiences and revolutionizing industries. How is Brillio leveraging these technologies to design human-centric solutions, and what industries do you see benefiting from these technologies?
Well, it's a great question, right? See, today, I think the way the world has evolved, it's become a very experience-centric, right?
Correct.
And also, when you look at the demographics of the users and how it's basically being used, you don't want to wait, for long. You do not want to, run a lot of cycles to get something that's here and, meaningful, right? What you're looking for is true experiences. And these experiences are completely abstracted from the underlying, IT ecosystems or whatever that you may call, right? The technologies that may be there.
Okay.
So a world where experiences matter, and I think it's probably a lot more magnified post-COVID when everybody, we're all remote, but then you're still trying to get the same thing out.
Correct.
So you want today everything in an instant, here and now, right? That's the world we are in. And it is not any different when you look at from an enterprise customers, right? Because they are also dealing with their own customers. So what is required is a great focus on creating the humanized experiences, right? So today, as Karthik, you will want something very different than what a Chander wants, right? And then so on and so forth. So what you're dealing with is different personas, really, Karthik. So when you deal with personas, what is important is you want to engage with the customer, right?
Correct.
Meaning your end customers, right? They need to engage with the platform. They need to engage with what they're trying to solve. And that cannot happen when you try to create something that's across the board, standard, for everybody, right? Those days are gone. So today it's all about personalization. It's all about those, that micro experiences that you truly look for. That's what people look for. So what is important is, today I look at spatial computing, I look at all these, the VRs, ARs, right?
Yeah.
And then you talk about different form factors, channels, so on and so forth. All of these are mediums and mechanisms to address that need.
Correct.
So think of all of these technologies today becoming an enabler and a means to address that experience piece of the world, right? That is what we have to focus on. So what has happened across every industries that we have been working as Brillio, what we have seen is this is manifold, right? Whether you're talking to a manufacturer, you're talking to a banking customer, you're talking to a healthcare life sciences customer, all of them basically look for these experiences, right? And that, I think, is the motion that we are involved in. And I think that's how the world is evolving as well, Karthik.
Like you rightfully said, we need everything like an instant. Now that we have moved into a 7-inch and a 14-inch screen format, everything is available or like one touch away. But Mr. Chander, I just really want to ask you, how do your hybrid cloud solutions actually stand out in enabling seamless operations for enterprises and catering to their unique needs, particularly when you see a small size or a medium sized enterprise?
Absolutely. See, I'll tell you the world, right? If I just take a step and I kind of give you a time series, what you will see is a lot of these big enterprises, they made, millions of dollars of investments in building out some of these platforms, right? Some of them could be on old technologies, some of them could be on new technologies. The world of silos is gone, right? Today, what you're looking, like we spoke about this previous question, right? Which is all about experiences.
Yeah.
When you think about experiences, it's always customer first. So when you're thinking of customer first, the underlying technologies and the IT ecosystems and whatever that you may be building has to completely be, invisible and abstract for them, right? So for that to happen, today, I think the world, I think of maybe a decade ago, the phase was, oh, let's move everything to cloud, right? Now from there, it's not one cloud because, don't want to put all your eggs in one, one basket, right? So you said, okay, let's go look at multi-cloud, right? And then there's the hybrid version, right? Then there's a private cloud. So when you think of all of these are your underlying infrastructure complexities, but for an end customer, it doesn't matter, right? I want my experience, right?
Yeah.
That's all that matters. So what has happened is the world is now moved into a model where you kind of break down those complexities, right? You kind of lead with experience first.
Okay.
Your middleware, or what I call as your orchestration layers, it could be your business process orchestration or whatever. That is basically the one which is connecting all these underlying systems. And the underlying systems itself may be all there in different places from a customer's perspective, right? Like an enterprise customer, they can have it in all different places, but all of those are abstracted out. So that's your mode that you're in. So today, no customer wants to stick to one, cloud or one, form of, infrastructure itself, right? So that's the underlying word. So also what we are doing is, you don't want to, retire today, right? So I think especially with the way the markets are, there's a massive amount of headwinds, in terms of investments, right? So the discretionary spends are becoming almost zero. People want to infuse life into what they already have and make that more. So hence, what you will see is all of these different hybrid versions of, the models that we are talking about, all of them continue to live a life. And that basically leads up to your experience first.
I was going through one of your podcasts where you rightfully said that, one of the core values of your personal life and how Brillio is associated with it is that customer success is one of the things that you really look out for. As we know that AI has become the foundation of the next gen solution. What does this particular term means? Because a lot of people might Google this out there. AI native. AI native in digital engineering. What does this term actually means?
Oh, it's a great question, Karthik. One is customer success. I think that's one of our core values that we evolve around, right? Which means, I always take the lens of what the customer is really looking to solve. And we spoke some of these before, which is take a very practitioner's view, right? Technology should be an enabler for what you're trying to do, right? It should solve the problem. It should not become, you put your cart before the horse. So when you take that approach, today, I think in the last 2 years, you would have seen AI is probably become a lot more, prevalent.
Correct.
And what used to be the realm of data scientists, today anybody and everybody, across the world, talks about AI, right? Now, it's not like AI just sprung up in the last 2 years. It's always been there for many years in different forms and fashions. But the generative AI side of the world, which obviously started off with OpenAI, I think that is what is picked up.
Okay.
Now, to specific to your question, Karthik, around AI native digital engineering. See, I think when I think of a typical engagement, right, like a product development lifecycle or, software development lifecycle, if I'm working for a customer, right, it typically involves all the way from ideation. So, hey, I have this problem to solve. Let's look at what are the options to solve the problem. Here are my 5 ideas. And each of these ideas can tell you, here are solutions that can work, right? And each of those solutions can have a technology lined up to that, right? That's your typical approach that you solve. And then you go through the process of saying, okay, let's get some engineers to actually build something for us. Let's go test it. And you take the life cycle, right? Which is typically ideation to a run. This life cycle, if you were to take a non-AI world, Karthik, I would have spent, I don't know, maybe a few months to basically take it, ideate it, build a blueprint, start building it, get this to action, get some focus groups, have some validations, and then basically take it to, live across every customers. Today with AI, the pieces, which is your ideations to requirements to architectures, blueprints, right? And then your build, and then your test, and then actual deployments to all these hybrid world that you talked about, all of that can happen using AI. And at Brillio, we're doing this all the way, through the process, right? So what happens is what used to be an engineer's job plus a combination of architects and managers and product owners is now a combination of where AI is almost my pair programmer who's working with me to basically accelerate the pace at which we do. So what used to take me months can now be done in matter of days and weeks, right? That's the shift that has happened. So AI native digital engineering for us is, how do I bring interventions into my product development lifecycle itself, where without impacting the quality and the output that I'm going to generate, I'm going to get it done in a much faster pace. That is AI for us.
Correct. And like you said, Brillio has been doing this for quite a while now. I mean, there is embedding AI first thinking that comes into existence, and they're into engineering practices. It can be about, re-engineering teams, it can be about tools, it can be about the mindsets to actually drive the entire thing, to drive the entire ecosystem to be more precise. How Brillio is precisely doing that? I mean, if the listeners and the viewers really want to know about this, how is Brillio precisely doing all of this?
That's a great question. In fact, I was giving you a little bit of the background on how Brillio was formed. One of the, core technology choices we made, when we started off in 2013, and our CEO was very specific saying, I want to look at what I call as 4 superpowers of technology. Okay. And one of that was AI. Okay. And this was way back in 2013, right? And from there, in fact, we actually grew, we have grown both organically as well as through acquisitions as well, right? In fact, one of our earliest acquisitions were AI firms, right? To add the weightage. So the key point that I'm getting to is, we want to take a very practitioner's view where we said, today it's all about a combination of looking at all your mobile and your front end and channel experiences. Think of cloud as your other, right? And then you think of your entire AI, which is your blocks. When you bring all of these different elements together, you're able to actually look at saying, okay, what are those experiences that you want to solve? What are the problems that you want to solve? Here are my solution approaches, which basically brings all these combinations together, right? That's essentially how we did. So we have done dogfooding ourselves. So we built every one of our internal systems using this, right? So one is to be a practitioner of our own, and I'm just stealing Microsoft's terminology, the dogfooding. I'll say we use that internally for ourselves. We see the value, we take this to our customers, right? That's our approach, Karthik. That's always worked for us.
And that's a fantastic approach, because I have really, heard about all of these things in the past interviews that you have done. And now that I can hear this in this particular podcast in a more brief manner, certainly warms the cockles of my heart. But can you just share an example, Mr. Chander, about how Brillio deployed generative AI to, achieve some significant results?
So I would say, when I look at AI, I would apply this at multiple levels, right?
Okay.
At the bare minimum, I would say, let's look at people productivity. Where, if I'm let's say, is my emails, is my, all the documents that I work with, right? Is there a mechanism for me to summarize all of these, right? And can I, if I was a developer, is it enabling my productivity, right? Because I'm building some reusable assets, I want to start using it, I want to ask AI certain questions, for some of my technical code snippets. It gets me all of the good stuff. So that is one level, right? Which is very productivity focused, people productivity focused, right? So you could apply at that level. That is your first level that we do. The second level that we look at is essentially what I call as your process, or the world of process orchestration has been from RPAs that used to be in the past to basically becoming today what we call as cognitive automation, or the agentic world of the automation, right? Which is, you can actually start saying, okay, if I was to onboard an employee to the company, the process would have involved, typically a talent acquisition person saying, okay, you're going to go hire this individual, right? Let's go through the process. We do the interviews, and then you offer the letter, and then the person joins. Or then there's a TA head who basically says, okay, here is the process that you need to get onboarded. This entire process, I'm just taking this as an example, right? This is your typical process, which should have been in a document, would have had 5 individuals working through this to basically make it happen. So today, that entire process can be orchestrated largely with AI, with human interventions, of course, but it can be done. So apply this in the world of the businesses that we are in, right? Whether it is a banking business, whether it's a healthcare business, whether it's a tech business or a consumer business, right? The ability for us to apply the AI in its agentic form across these processes, which would have typically been a combination of manual and automation, whatever, can now become a lot more powerful with AI. So that's how I see this as the next level, guys, which is essentially the value add that you can create. And then I would say the third way is essentially kind of think of reimagining the way you do your business itself, right? That itself can actually change with what AI can do. I'll give you an example, right? So say, for example, we are working with, say, a telco customer, okay? What's their biggest issue? For example, if you use your phone network, you want your network to be active, right? You don't want your calls to drop. You don't want any issues. When you run into those issues, you basically say, oh my God, this network is bad. I need to move to the next one, right? So typically, what do you call as customer churn, right? Now, if you think of this, what was the problem? You were in this location at this moment, and there was an outage or something that happened to the cell, and that basically created that micro moment for you where you became upset with that whole, the network itself, right? The question is, how do you translate this and basically say, if AI was my pair and was kind of looking at your micro journeys, and it said the reason why Karthik got upset was because of this moment, right? Meaning the network, didn't happen, was not there. He was there at that moment. I correlated this. Now I know this is the reason. I can actually help remediate that issue, and I can also send you a proactive message saying, hey, apologies for what happened, right? Here's what I'm going to go to improve the experience. So that's the change that is happening with AI. And I'm just taking this as one of the examples. I can talk about many industries where examples, right? This is where you essentially reimagine, Karthik, how businesses operate itself. That's what AI can do today. So I would say at Brillio, we look at all of these 3 levels. And it's not like one versus the other. It's you combine your personal productivities with processes to basically say, how do you reimagine the business? That's what you do.
And just to add to this, I mean, because I have a counter question for the statement that you just gave. A lot of news headlines have been regarding AI recently, and people say this thing, like you rightfully said, that the kind of job that technically 4 or 5 people had to do at that point of time can be easily done through AI. Though it needs a human intervention, but the kind of work that will be done with the help of AI will be a bit more precise. It will be done in a much more faster manner. But the headlines that you can see actually in the newsrooms and on your newspaper that's being served to you on a platter every morning says that AI is pretty dangerous. AI is out there to actually suck out your jobs. AI is going to take away the jobs. And just to ask you this, are there any measures in place to actually keep this risk away from the people who are actually in a profession where AI is taking over? Because generative AI is in place. You guys are using it. The world is using it at this point of time.
Correct.
And people have this job security issue that is making headlines all over the globe now. And not just in our country, but all across the globe.
Yeah.
So are there any measures in place?
Absolutely. So I'll answer this question, Karthik, in probably 2 parts, right?
Okay.
One is, I think if you look at this from a people perspective, I don't think people should be worried that AI is going to take your job.
Okay.
Right? Like I said, AI should be considered as essentially your pair programmer.
Yeah.
Where, it's doing a lot of your mundane job that you would have sat and done, hours together, right? It's helping, it's almost like a tailwind, right? Not necessarily a headwind.
Headwind, yeah.
So consider this as your tailwind, which is enabling you to do a lot of the common things that you would have done otherwise. Basically takes that, the grind out of your job and basically makes it available for you.
Okay.
Then you focus on solving higher order problems, right? So the focus should be, if I was a developer, I shouldn't be worried that AI is going to take my job. I should look at AI as an enabler for me and use it in the right way to actually solve more problems, right? Because today, if I take that frame of saying there is going to be problems all the time, meaning, business problems, that keeps coming in all the time, right? Every time there is a problem, you should not look at trying to solve one way or the other, right? There will be obviously solution choices, that you make, and each of these choices can have technologies that plays in, right? Now, AI can actually help a lot of these for you, and then you focus on solving the bigger problem, right? So that's what I would say from a developer perspective. When you think of, people shouldn't be worried about, unless and until, you want to enjoy your job, right? And you don't want to sit and do new things, then it's going to be a risk.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I would say it's a fun way to basically do a lot more, right? That is your first level. The second part of how I would answer is, the whole AI, obviously it's almost like your knife, right?
Yeah.
I can use it to cut a slice of bread. I can also use it to, for other things as well, right? So the question is, how do you want to use the technology, right? Do you want to basically weaponize it, or do you want to basically say, I want to use it for good, right?
Yeah.
So AI, I would say you can actually use it for good a lot more, right, than what you would use it otherwise. So in my view, the way we should look at this is, and I think there are controls in place. I think every country today, you see there is an act that has been enforced by, whether it's in the Americas,
there are certain
Europe,
protocols and regulations that are put in
right?
place. Yes.
Everybody is putting in place, saying how AI should be used, right, and how AI should be brought in. That's one. Second, for us, when you work yourself, right, how do you apply it ethically into your ways of working? How do you apply this in your customer's context, right? How do you solve that? I think all of this needs to be in control. So there is typically a governance committees, or controls that are put in place. You bring like a human in the loop to ensure that, there is no waywardness that comes in, right? Typically, even with AI, what happens is there can be drifts that can happen. So what happens is, over a period of time, your data is changing, your patterns are changing, the model itself is changing, right? Because it's learning. So there could be drifts that could come in, and that may basically start giving out answers which may not be very accurate, right? So you need to put all of those controls in place, and that can only happen with the best AI that is there, which is human, right?
Yeah.
So you have to bring human in the mix for you to solve. So my view is, AI will coexist with humans, but the thing is, it's going to take the grind out of the job that you would have done otherwise, and kind of elevate your position to say, let's do better things in life, right? And do higher order problems solving in place. That's what I would say.
Like the sporting term says, right? You need to have a wingman. So AI is certainly going to be the wingman for all of those people who are pretty scared about the fact whether their joy is secure or not.
Yeah.
And anyway, if you really don't want to work at your workplace, that is going to be your problem. But if you are efficient enough, if you're a good skilled worker, probably this is not the risk that you should consider on your job. Coming back to AI, there is a lot of buzz in the world at this point of time. A lot of firms are coming out with their respective AI, whether it's Google, who has come out with Gemini, whether it's Mr. Elon Musk, the man who has always been in the news for bringing out something or the other, and now he has came out with XChat. And I was reading this today in the newspaper only, that this is going to be like a new messaging platform that might have a lot of AI integrations into it. It will make your chat experience more personalized. It will make it more private. So there is no breach of privacy or security in that. But talking about Brillio, I mean, like you rightfully said, the best AI in the world is actually human. How do you ensure Brillio, as in like how Brillio ensures that AI systems remain ethical, they don't breach any regulations, any protocols, and they stay compliant?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, I think that's I would say the starting point from where you need to engage, right, Karthik? What I would say with that is, some of the things that I was telling in the previous, question as well, right? Think of when you start with an AI first approach, the first things that you put in place is what's the governance and controls that you're going to have, right? With respect to how AI is going to be used, right?
Okay.
So if I'm taking a problem to solve, like the customer churn example that I gave you, I have to basically say how AI can go potentially awry, right? And that is basically, it could be, the data that I'm passing could actually start to drift. The model itself that I'm using, for example, you talked about, like a Grok could be there, right? You could have a Gemini, right? All of these models will have different biases that can kind of kick in, right? So to ensure that none of this goes, away, and doesn't have the drifts, you basically have to put a human in the loop. So you can actually start with that first.
Correct.
Right? So when you're framing your architecture blueprints, you will basically say, okay, let's look at the technology lens and let's see what could be the, the biases or the issues that could creep in. How do I put controls in that? Okay. If there are processes, how do you frame those processes? Sometimes you codify those processes as well, right? You kind of bring that in. The third is the human angle, which is a combination of, you need to train the people constantly, you need to keep them aware, because humans can also be the weakest link in any equation, right? And it's more so in security, but even otherwise, right? But what is important is when you put a control across all these three levels, you have a good mechanism to say, I'm not going to breach, the ways of, the laws of the land. I'm not going to go against certain ethics, so on and so forth, right? That is how you typically start with. So you always start with the security first approach, really, Karthik.
Correct. So do you have a case where, robust AI governance averted a potential ethical dilemma or compliance risk? Because this is certainly a food for thought to chew upon. I mean, AI being the master of everything at this point of time.
Absolutely. See, I think it's more so when you're working with the regulated businesses, right? And regulated businesses is typically either in your banking and financial sector or in your healthcare and life sciences sector, right? Now, so two levels, right? I would say when you're working, in fact, a good tidbit for you is, in fact, the regulated businesses are actually the first adopters of some of these new technologies like AI, okay? It's very interesting because a lot of people think it's the other way around, but it's actually the other way around, right? So where you start, some of the big banks, that we work with, they actually have their own AI engine. They model their own, right? They work with their own, right? So the question is, when you work with regulated businesses, so you not only have to comply with what the business expects you to do, but you also have to comply with the laws of the land, right? So for example, when we're working with a very large bank in the US, their offshoots when they work in Europe, for example, right? They have to comply to the European laws, which are very different compared to what you do here, right? So the question is, again, like the way we were speaking, it's important for us to put the controls at technology, process, and at the people level, right? So that way you're saying, I'm always compliant, in terms of what I'm doing in terms of the business, right? And also in the ways of the working, right? Which is where you deploy this, in the countries that you operate in. All of these basically plays a big role. So that's how I would say, you'll have to look at this all the time.
Certainly, because, when we talk about agentic AI, it represents a very bold new phase of digital revolution and transformation. I mean, the way we have digitally evolutionized ourselves as humans is something that is very impeccable, because the story says it all. But like we said, agentic AI is reshaping the future of our work and decision making. What steps is Brillio taking to make it a leading platform to be in the space?
Sure. So I'll say, a couple things, right? So the world of, I would say in technology, we call something as an enterprise architecture principles. Okay. Right? And that's like your fundamentals, right? Which is, the world hasn't changed in the past 30 years, and it's not going to change in the next 30 years in terms of the choices that you make, right? In terms of certain principles, right? Okay. And those principles basically says, you're not building every time something new, right? You're building something, but then you're trying to reuse some of those assets, right? And typically what we do is we put them in something called as service catalogs, which is your reusable assets repository where you put a lot of code, right? And then you create some templates, and then what you do is you start to build I would say an ecosystem that allows you to kind of jumpstart, how you want to do your ways of working. So I think with the agents coming into play big time, what we are seeing is what we call as a marketplace trend, right? So marketplace is basically, all my different types of agents that could probably work through is all in that marketplace. And everybody, if you see, right, whether you look at your mobile stores or whether you look at your cloud stores, you look at across the board, right, even across customers, you will see these marketplace type of a thinking where anything that I want to have, is made available either for a commercial price or otherwise. But the idea of a marketplace is what is exploding big time, Karthik. So when you think of that, the world, the way it is evolving is there are more agents that is getting created, right? So you look at your hyperscalers, you look at your product vendors, OEMs, right? Each of them are coming with their own offerings, which are very specific to solve certain types of problems, right? And then you bring in, service partners like us, we also start building, right? So the whole ecosystem that you will see evolving will be what I would call as an agent marketplace, right? Okay. So you create these agent marketplaces, you have different types of agents that solves different types of problems. What happens is you walk into a world where you consume these agents, you orchestrate these agents in different forms and fashions, and you actually solve the problem. So when I talked about AI at 3 levels, my second layer, which was all around the process and the agentic world of process orchestration, can now happen with almost low code or no code, right? You're basically bringing things together and saying, okay, let's go solve this problem, right? That's the space at which we are running right now.
And just to add up to this, I mean, how does Brillio is transforming the space for, the future growth? We always talk about, there is a certain firm which is upscaling and preparing their teams for the future. How is Brillio actually doing all of this?
That's a great question. That's a good way to, to summarize this, right? See, I think one thing is people are our strength, okay? Yeah. No matter what, like I said, the best AI agent for me is my human, okay? So when you think of that, one of the things that we at Brillio did was to walk into what we called as a competency-based framework, right? So essentially, if I simplify this, I'm an architect. I want to be a data scientist, okay? So the role is completely different. So what we do is we have created a competency framework, and each of these competencies have certain proficiencies defined, right? Okay. So for example, a data scientist with a proficiency level 1 has to certify themselves on certain tech, have to do certain, exam. They have to take certain exams, or they have to go through certain programs, so on and so forth, right? So if you qualify, you become proficiency 1. Similarly, you keep different proficiencies, right? So we created this almost 3 years ago. So the idea was, I want any of my people to do any type of job which they like to do, right? When you do your best when you're truly passionate about it.
Yes.
And what we want to do is bring that passion into our people. So the best way to do that is allow people to enjoy and do what they love to do. If it's a grind, you're not loving it, right? But if it's not a grind, you love it, right? So we said, let's bring this. So that was the first level that we did. The second level, what we did was, we said every one of our employees needs to understand what is AI.
Okay.
Consume AI, right? Look at using AI, understand AI, right? So the mechanisms to allow people to basically engage and learn these new areas, and also give them a path that allows them to walk into those choices that they want to make, and the passion that they want to follow, is something that we have done really well. And that has obviously got us to be a great place to work, over the last few years, across all of our geographies where we operate. And I think that is what we will continue to keep engaging, Karthik, as we walk into this new world, right? See, today it is AI. I'm sure tomorrow it will be another technology.
Correct.
So the key thing is, how do you constantly, sharpen the knife, right? How do you constantly keep your people engaged? How do you keep asking them to drive more, right? Obviously through these new world. I think that's the world we are in, and that's what I think we are doing to basically enable it to happen.
You talked about how Brillio is actually preparing their team to, see how things are going to be in the future. You're preparing people how to use all of these technologies that are coming into place, whether it's, machine learning, whether it's AI. How is Mr. Chander preparing himself for the future? I mean, considering the fact that a lot of similarities are between you and AI. I mean, like you said, because one of those interviews that I absolutely loved of yours said that you are a learner and you want to be a learner for the rest of your life.
True.
And, it takes immense amount of guts for somebody to learn, unlearn, and then move on to some other thing.
Correct.
Now that we are talking about how Brillio is preparing their teams for the future, how is Mr. Chander preparing himself for the foreseeable future?
See, I think, I think maybe I told you this. One of the things is, you can never ever sit back and say, okay, I know everything. Okay, there's always going to be something that's going to keep happening, right? And it's it's a question of whether you want to chase the tail or you want to kind of lead from the front. So when you want to lead from the front, you have to assimilate a lot of things that's happening around the world, and then apply your own lens of saying, how does this mean to me?
Okay.
So when I walk to a customer, for example, I'm not there saying, oh, customer, you should do this, you should do that, right? I'm saying, if I was sitting in your shoes, what would I do, right? This is my problem to solve.
Yeah.
What do I solve? And if I don't understand that world, I can't give a very sane, advice in terms of what should be that. And that's where I call it as a practitioner's mindset. For a practitioner's mindset, you need to constantly look at what's happening around the bend, use that, frame it in a way that you make it pragmatic for the person. And that is the part that I keep saying, right? You have to be a learner all your life. So you have to spend hours to actually understand what's happening, assimilate that, and then make it real. That's what I would say, Karthik.
That's certainly a food for thought to chew upon. Mr. Chander, how does Brillio help, their clients with smart investments, considering the fact now, AI is into place and you guys are doing everything to make sure that your customers are really happy. And, one of the core values that you guys have is that there needs to be a customer success. So how is all of that happening into the customer space? How are you aligning the clients with smart investments?
No, that's a great question, right? See, I think what we always look at, and it's always you sit on the same side of the table.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there as a vendor partner. You're sitting with them as a true partner. And a bunch of things that we have done through this firm's history, right? One, we have taken a very outcome-driven approach, saying I want to sign up to what your outcomes are, and I will deliver to those outcomes, and only then you pay me, on my in the work that I'm doing, right? So you work towards that. So what you do with that is you take a very different approach, which is I'm going to solve for you, with you, right? That's one part of the approach. The second part of the approach is, see, we are a very when you talk about customer success is not about order taking. Okay, sir, you tell me what you want, let me go do this, right? That's not what we do. We say, why are you doing this? What do you want to achieve from this? What's your end goals, right? So you kind of constantly challenge what you're trying to build. And then when you see the frame coming together is when you start ideating, and then you're building through the whole course, right? So that I would say is the second. So the whole ability for us to, what I call as the founder's mindset. This is a very important philosophy for us. We imbibe this into each one of us. And what we say is, I need to look at this from the lens of what you are trying to do. And let me solve that. Let me ask you the right questions, and let me frame it, and let me get it done. That is how you basically enable and you chisel the investments to the right choices, right? And especially, I think we spoke with the world that we are in right now. We see massive amount of headwinds with amount of investment that's going in, right? So what do you do with that is, how do you infuse life into what you already have? How do you basically, lengthen it without necessarily, trying to take the grind into it, but taking the technologies to basically becoming the choices, right? So the world of labor arbitrage and cost arbitrages are gone. It's now the world is about technology arbitrage, right? So when you apply the technology arbitrage in a customer's context, your investments become smarter investments. So that's what we do today, Karthik.
And sir, I'm always curious to find examples from you, and this is why I'm going to ask you this. Can you just share one of those examples where the company actually turned a disruptive challenge for a client into a very smart growth, growth exceeding opportunity, where you can actually say that the client was really happy. He see immense amount of growth right after that. It was a disruptive challenge and he was down and out. And now it certainly seems like a sky-high win for him.
I think there are many examples that I can talk through, but one that I can definitely tell you, which is something that we are working with, is with a very large network provider, right?
Okay.
And one of the things was, the products that they have and the world that they are in. They serve both, I would say, your traditional, telcos, right?
Okay.
And they also serve, the new world of, I would say, these enterprises as well, right? So one of the things was, when they originally started off, they were only working with the telco world of it, right? So we said, whatever the product that you're building, actually with a little bit of the, and in fact, that was one of your questions, Karthik. You talked about this hybrid cloud and cloud ecosystem, right? So one of the things we said is, today, if you look at any enterprise customer, they're not on one technology or on one data center or on one cloud, right? They're a combination of technologies. So the product that you have, with a little bit of a tweak, we can actually open up a completely new business world, which you don't exist in today. And that's what we frame for them. We help them to get in and diversify their business into something net new. And that allowed us to actually, this customer allowed us so much, they expanded their footprint with us, they're doing a lot of things with us, right? But the key thing is, we opened up a revenue stream that didn't exist for them before, and now that's part of their new business, right? So that's what we've been doing. So many examples I can keep talking, but that's probably one thing that I would say, Karthik.
That's one of the most informative things that you have said. It. I mean, when we look at AI in general, I mean, we as radio professionals, the people who are working in media, have been massively using it. It's making our jobs really easier. And there are times when, this personal anecdote comes to place where one of my producers come inside the studio. They ask me whether I'm going to lose my job or not. And then I tell him that, maintain your skill set. Make sure that you use AI as your wingman and everything is going to be all right. And since then, he has been saving his job really well. And I personally believe that I am saving mine as well. But thank you so much, sir, for sparing your wonderful time with us and sharing those wonderful insights. Last but not the least, one question that I really want to ask you, and I was hoping that I could get a chance to ask you this. People who are driving an organization are people who are really busy in life. I mean, what your employees see you, what image they have in your heads is completely different, right? When they are in a closed room with you, it's completely different. So once you are out of those rectangles of the Excel sheet, how does your day actually looks like? What does Mr. Chander actually do in his, free time? What are those things? Are you trying to, use AI more often and getting your prompt game on? Or is there any other thing that you try and do while you're free?
Sure. So I think, if I wasn't a technologist, I would have been a fighter pilot.
Ooh.
So that is what I would have done. But I dabble, I read a lot. So because I read a lot, there's constantly, and it's both, the profession that requires me to continue to keep sizzling my thing, but also I look at other world as well, right? So I'm also an amateur astronomer. I build my own telescopes. I've done many of those, right? So I've done star mappings across the board. There are a few areas that you have to still walk into. So that's part of my bucket list, in terms of things that I want to do. Some of these stars, the constellations that you have to look at, they typically are in the southern horizon. So you need to kind of travel to those locations. So those are some of my things to do. But I constantly look at all of these different things, right? So it's either technology, or I'm looking at the sky, or I'm reading about things. But that's what keeps me engaged through and through. So it's always about something new every time.
Certainly Cosmos and Neil deGrasse Tyson has taken you over. But thank you so much for sharing these wonderful insights with us. And, this future of technology and how Brillio is driving innovation. Mr. Chander, for more information on Brillio's work, please tell people where they need to visit, what they need to do. Because we know where to go and where to suck out information for. But if anything that you really want to tell about Brillio to all of those viewers and listeners who are listening to this podcast.
No, absolutely right. I think Brillio, you could go to our website, www.brillio.com. That's a place where you can reach out if there's anything that you need. Otherwise, I'm sure, we live in a world which is very social. You're connected with all of us. You can look up our LinkedIns and, you can reach out to us and talk to us. But I think the key thing that I would say for each one of us who's listening in, right, is the world is going to keep constantly changing, right? And I think what is important for us is how do you, kind of lead the pack rather than chasing the tail. And for you to lead the pack, you need to really look at saying, what are the types of problems that you really want to solve? And then how technology can be a great enabler for you to do that, right? I think that's the approach that each one of us should do. And at Brillio, that's something that's part of our core skills, in terms of what we do. And if there's interest, let's kind of catch up on that.
So visit www.brillio.com, or you need to go on Google and write Brillio. And for more conversations on technology, driving change and innovation, don't forget to subscribe to Mint Techcetra on YouTube and on all audio streaming platforms. Until next time, stay secure, stay smart. This is your host Karthik, signing off.